Good evening, YouTubers. Welcome to episode 27 of ShrigleytubeTV. Quite a few odd things going on tonight, a bit different. Got a bit of an interview with Mr. Simon Benoy. He came to drop his engine off for a refresh, so that was good. Had a little bit of a chat with him, and he was quite happy to chat back about what his antics he's been up to this year and stuff like that. So that was good. And next, I'm going to put on a little intro video that one of my friends stroke customers stroke subscribers has done for me, which was great. So I'll put that on next so you can see it. Let me know what you think about it. And what else was I going to say? Oh, race retro. Tonight's content's a bit varied. I'll list all that in the title so you can see what you want to see on there and go to it. But anyway, race retro. I was going to say Stoneleigh, Coventry. The weekend of the 22nd, 23rd, 24th of February. It's like the Friday, Saturday, Sunday. They've got like a live rally stage on, massive indoor show. It's a really, really good one. Last year we did it. It was absolutely packed out. It was brilliant. I think a lot of people go to watch the live rally stage outside, which runs on the Saturday and Sunday. So we've got an indoor stand anyway. So if you want a t-shirt, come along and purchase one, and if you have loads of treasure out there as well, trying to make it pay for the weekend. But if you want to come along just for a chat, then that's great as well. Come and say hello, and we'll be on the stand all weekend. So I hope you enjoyed tonight's content. I look forward to seeing you next week. Cheers for now. Bye bye. Good morning, YouTubers. It's Tuesday morning. Didn't do any videoing yesterday on Monday. I was busy getting stuck into that engine over there, and I had a cheeky hour on this, which we'll come to in a minute. But anyway, you may remember we did a hill climb video from Harewood, episode 10 it was, and I interviewed a few people at the hill, and one of them was a chap called Neil and his son Finn, and they were share driving a Janetta G15. Well, father and son team had done a bit of a rebuild on the engine, and then he said, "Oh, I'm thinking of upgrading to a set of steel rods, etc. Can you have a look at it?" So anyway, I said I'll slot them in for you. So that's what that's about. So that was yesterday's job. Didn't video, and it was a bit boring. Nothing really exciting to report. So yeah, I did have a cheeky hour last night though on the 1120. I finished machining the pistons, and I thought we'd just do a quick look at that in a second. But the reason for this video is I wanted to say I've got a very important customer coming today, and that's Mr. Simon Benoy, and I'm going to try and interview him. Not sure how he's going to take to it, but we'll try and get him talking. Now, Simon Benoy is the guy that's been with me. He was probably one of my very, very first customers. I first met him when I started racing my imp in the HSCC, and he was very competitive, etc. But he was using a different engine builder then. And then when I started getting a bit closer and beating him, or trying to beat him, yeah, he decided to join. So he's a very special customer because he was the guy that when we started doing the engines for him, he was revving them high, like we had a crankshaft snap, and then we had another crankshaft snap, but he was using 9.5 and doing like a full season's racing. So he said to me, "Look, what's the problem?" So I said, "Well, the problem is, we're asking a bit too much of the crankshaft. It's a standard EN8 forging." And he said, "Well, why don't we put steel ones in?" I said, "Well, they're a couple of grand a piece, blah blah blah." He said, "No worries, I'll get them made for you, and I'll hold them, and when you sell them, you can buy them off me." So that's what he did, and he put his own personal money into the job, and it was brilliant. That was the start of it all starting to go better, because obviously, as we know, we always say, if you buy and new parts, you get the best out of them, and if they're good, they retain the value. And there goes the doorbell. That could be him. Okay, YouTubers, I'm joined in the workshop here by Mr. Simon Benoy. Hi Simon, thanks for agreeing to be on ShrigleyTube today.
Hi Andy, yeah, it's great to be here.
Yeah, excellent. Now, Simon's just brought his engine back for refresh. This is your 1150, isn't it? And Simon races in, what championship is it?
It's the Swinging 60s series within the CSCC club.
And it's quite long races, isn't it? Like 40
minutes.
minutes.
That's right. So we get 30 minutes qualifying and 40-minute races. And the class I race in is for up to 1400 with very, very simple regulations.
Yeah, with lots of MG midgets that are very fast.
Indeed, that's right. The main opposition are 1400cc midgets. So we do struggle a little bit with keeping up with them on the straights, but we have some great races.
Wow. Well, this is Simon's engine, and Simon was probably my first proper customer. I reckon it was back in 2010 or something. Was it around that era?
Yeah.
I was working for Bob at the time. Bob was helping very much with the imp engines because I could make them work for about 3 laps and then they'd fail. So Bob was helping out, and this engine has been, it's actually been with you a long time, this engine, isn't it, really?
Yeah, it must be
2013, this one?
14 or 15, I think, but yeah, it's certainly seen a good few races now.
Yeah, I remember what happened was Simon was running a 998 that I'd built for him, and you like using RPM, don't you, Simon?
Well, I used to.
So I think we used about 9.5 in it, weren't we, sort of at times?
Yeah, on the 998, yes.
Yeah, the crankshaft would only take so much, and unfortunately it was failed. So what we did was I spoke to Simon, and Simon said, look, you know, obviously I was just a young lad working for Bob at the time, but Simon was keen to invest, weren't you, Simon? So
yeah,
Simon,
so we were looking at what we could do to improve the reliability and keep the performance. So
yeah, so Simon basically offered to get the crankshafts made. So that was great. So that's when we started using the fan and cranks with the arrow rods, and yeah, this is one of the original crankshafts, isn't it? And it's still on its first grind. It's never even had a grind, eh? No. It's done some racing now. I was just saying to Simon, every time I take it apart, I measure it, polish it, and I look at it and I think there's absolutely nothing wrong with this. It can go back in again. So yeah, they're good quality crankshafts from Fan, and I do like them. They're really good quality. So let's talk about some of your motorsport history, Simon. How long have you been racing in for now?
I started in 2005 was the first season I did circuit racing. Yeah.
Wow, that's the year I went to live in Jersey. That.
So I did 2 years with the first car that I had, which was, to be honest, a bit of a poor car. It was heavy. There were loads and loads and loads of sills on it, and
the cover sills.
many cover sills. But it had been a car that had been in motorsport for a while. A few people have asked on Facebook about it since, and I said, oh yeah, I remember that car. I had that briefly.
Wow, was this one from Belgium?
Yeah, that's right. I bought it from a chap in Belgium, but I don't know where he'd had it from. But other people in the UK had used it in motorsport previously. And it got me into it. It allowed me a relatively cheap start, which I put decent brakes on it, and obviously a decent engine and gearbox, and we had a lot of fun with it. Mm-hmm. And then during the winter of 2006 into 2007 was when the current car was built by Mike Hanna for me. The shell was built by Mike Hanna, and that's proved equally up to the job. So it's been really good.
Yeah, it's a good shell. It's a light shell as well. Yeah, I remember you always had to put weight in it in the HSCC, didn't you, to get you up to the limit?
That's right, yeah, because I'm fairly lightweight myself.
You're a racing snake, Simon.
I had to ballast it up, yeah, so with the series I do at the moment, there's no minimum weight limit, so all the ballast is gone.
Right. Oh, brilliant. Well, I mean, we'll get this. I'm pointing the microphone at the engine like the engine's going to speak. We'll get this apart. We'll have a look and see what we see. I don't think we've got any major issues. Just up on its hours, it's had quite a busy season, hasn't it?
It has.
Yeah. So have we had any? I mean, when you first joined this championship, you had some good successes, didn't you? Went to Knock Hill and did the wrong way around, and I think you put the video on YouTube, didn't you, under Simon Benoy?
Yeah. So
I watched that a few times.
That's right. The meeting at Knock Hill was there weren't that many people competing. It was only just after the COVID time, and there were only 20 odd entries. And Knock Hills, as those of you who've been up there and done the track day will know, is quite imp friendly. It's quite a tricky little circuit, and it's good fun. And we raced it in the normal direction on the Saturday, and then we started again on the Sunday and went the opposite way.
Wow.
So qualifying on the Saturday was pretty good. I managed to get second on the grid behind a 2-litre Alfa Romeo, but then it rained for the race. So I thought, well, this is going to give me a bit of a chance.
Excellent.
But I knew there were 2 minis further back on the grid who'd not qualified quite as well. So I knew if it was wet, I needed to try and get on with it. They were 30-minute races, and as soon as the lights went to green, I was off. Obviously, the Imp makes a great car in the wet, especially off the start line.
Yeah,
and I was able to get to the first corner first and just keep my head down. And luckily, all things worked out really well in the first race.
Yeah.
The second race on the Sunday, I had a small problem in qualifying, and then we went back in the pits and fixed that. I managed to get out and put in a good lap right at the end of qualifying.
All under pressure.
That's right, and it got me close to the front of the grid again. But in the dry, there was a couple of midgets and a Cortina GT that were going quite well. Unfortunately, the Alpha had a problem by this stage and wasn't out anymore. But we had a great race. We were having a good ding dong with a midget and the Cortina, and there was a safety car while I was doing my pit stop, because I got a penalty for winning the first race. They give you time penalties if you win outright in the CSCC, and I had a 20-second penalty for the second race. But because I stopped and then the safety car came out, it effectively wiped out my penalty. So when I came back out onto the circuit, I came out behind the midget that was leading the race. So I was running in second, and I had a really good ding dong with him. And we came into the pits after the race, into the Parc Ferme, and I was expecting to go into the second place pit, which is where I'd finished on the road. And the officials were waving me towards the first place finishing place. I was a bit confused, but anyway, I went there and got out of the car and said, well, I didn't finish first, I finished second. And they said, no, the guy in the midget short stopped his pit stop slightly, so he got a time penalty. So I ended up winning again. So
excellent.
That was great fun. Yes,
flying the flag there, Simon, for the Hillman Imp Gang. Brilliant. I watched that quite regular on YouTube. I like that in car. I keep thinking I could have been faster, but that I'm joking.
I'm sure you could. Right,
what we're going to do is we're going to go a bit over the spec of this engine, and then we'll wrap it up, because we've got lots to get through this week. But thank you very much for the detailed interview there, Simon, on that weekend. So this engine is it's a Talbot Sunbeam block, so it's got the little extra bit of material here as a rear oil sealer standard. These engines were fitted in the 1 litre Talbot Sunbeams, but they're just basically an imp engine with a little bit of an oil seal in the back and a couple of extra webs. And then you'll see it's got the 2 spacers. So there's one spacer there that's 5/8. That gives us allows us to use long rod. And then there's another spacer on top. If I zoom in, you'll see it. And that was the 5mm spacer, which was for the stroke, because obviously it's got 10mm longer stroke on this engine, which makes it 1150cc. And the head hasn't got any stamps on it, typical of me, but it's a big valve full race head. And I know, yeah, that's just what's written on there. I think that's my cam timing figures. So it's an early sport head. It's a 162 as well. That's interesting, isn't it? So it's an early sport casting. And then here we have the oil exchange unit. This is to cool the oil, so the water from the radiator comes back to the engine cold. It cools the oil cooler first, and then the slightly warmed water from cooling the oil goes into the engine, through the engine, cools it, and then out the thermostat housing and back off to the radiator to be cooled properly. So that's just how we run them. And then obviously on Simon's as well, we don't have a breather like a normal engine. We have 2 -10 fittings, one here and one here. Because Simon does long races, what we do is we blow all the breather fumes into a tank, and then we just accept that a certain percentage of that fumes will carry oil with it, so it settles in the pot and then it drains back down to the sump, because it's really important that we keep the sump level up to its maximum. It doesn't actually use any oil, so it, you know, in theory, at the end of the race, it's as fit and as healthy as it was at the beginning. Obviously, Simon runs the air box so that it gets cold air, and these are 45 mil Webbers, aren't they? So we're running 45 mil Webbers on this engine, which we have gone back to the 40 mils, basically, just because a lot of the cars I tune engines for now are in the in a championship that runs a 4-speed gearbox. So we tune this engine slightly different, because Simon uses a 5-speed gearbox, and what that allows him to do is it allows him to keep it pinned between sort of 6.5 and 8.5.
6 and 8.5, yeah.
Yeah, 6 and 8.5. So 6,000 revs to 8.5. We try and make the engine produce all of the power in that area, and he's got a different type of exhaust. Normally we use a Will Parry exhaust, but this was a development exhaust that I did especially for Simon, which is a 4-into-1. And what that does is we do lose mid-range torque down at sort of 5 and 5.5 and maybe even at 6, but when it comes on at 6.5, it's stronger in that area, and because he's got the gearbox to keep the ratios with the ratios in it, to keep it on song, it actually works better, I think. I don't know what your thoughts are, Simon. Did you notice a difference when we changed the exhaust system?
Not specifically, but the lap times are generally a fraction better at most circuits. The development we've done over the years, each time has given us a little bit more at each circuit we go to, so must be something in there somewhere that's getting better.
So I've not tuned it to a standstill like most things then. Right, well, I think we'll wrap that up at that. Thanks very much, Simon, and I'll if anyone wants to see Simon on YouTube, just type his name in and the Hillman Imp or something, and you'll see his in-car footage. It's really, really good. Right, YouTubers, it's Wednesday night, and it's time to clock out and have a little bit of a play with my little treat engine. So I'm going to have a couple of hours on this before I go home, or before I go to the Hillman Club. So I put the pistons in. Last time you saw these pistons, they were on the machine. We just done the cutout, so I've tidied them up with a bit of a deburr and just got them all in. So I have put the head that I'm going to run on the engine, and I've measured the drop, and we're varying between 226 and 222 thou drop before the contact. So it is a bit on the shallow side, but I'm hoping it'll go around. And I had this little idea, and I thought, oh, I remember I bought this head from a car boot sale or something. It's from like a college, and they've chopped out the front 2 cylinders. So I thought what I could do is I could put a couple of valves. I've got some guides here. I've drilled some M6 holes here, you can see. I'm going to make some little clamps to hold the guides in place, and then what I'm going to do is put some valves in it and put it on the engine, and then do a lap with you guys, because I know I go on about the valves accelerating faster than the piston can get down the bore and all that, but this will give you a good visual, so you'll be able to back up, well, I can back up what I'm trying to tell you while showing you with my screwdriver pointing at the parts how it all goes round. I think it'd be good to help people that don't quite understand what I'm on about understand. I know a lot of you guys are highly trained engineers and understand perfectly well. So that's next. But what I'm going to do now is I'll just talk you through what I have done that I haven't videoed. So this is the motorbike rod, obviously, on the small pin. And what I've done is I was looking. Obviously, these are what we call piston guided rods. So the rod is free to move on the big end, but it's guided by the piston, so it's piston guided rod. And if you look, you'll see I put one it's not very good focus, is it? I put one shim on one side on that one, and one shim on that side on the other. I've made these shims up, and I've deliberately put them in them positions, because what I want to do is I want to get the rod as close to the bearing. So if you look, the gap is on that side, so it's closer to the middle main to help support it. Same on that side, and on numbers 1 and 4, it's the other way. So the shim is there, and that's closest to its support. So I'm just hoping it just helps it all hold together, because we're going to run this together on the dyno, so at least 8.5, because if it's going to disgrace itself and send one out the side, I'd rather it did it with me than on the track, where it can ruin everybody else's day with oil everywhere, etc. So What we're going to do is, I was going to talk about the shim. The shim might sound like a really simple thing to make, but the shim was quite tricky because what you got to think is that shim's going to be reciprocating up and down at a right old pace, so it couldn't afford to have any clearance, so I had to bore them on the lathe so they just fitted dead snugly over the gudgeon pin, and then I ground them to get them the correct fitness because I wanted a little bit of play. I've done about 5 thou play on the thrust, so they can move a bit because we don't want it all binding up, you know. Anyway, that's that. So we'll get on with building this head now with some valves in it, and we'll try and get a lap tonight out of this, and we'll be able to see how it goes round. That'll be quite interesting for us all. Right, okay, as you can see, I put the head on, but I haven't put the cam on yet. I just wanted to show you the clearance. So if we look, you can see the valves have got a gap between there and the cutout. In fact, if I lean on them, can you see that's the clearance we've got at top dead? That's our 220 thou I was telling you about before. Obviously these haven't even got valve seats in, it's just a head just for the purpose of showing you the movement, which is what we'll do next. So I'll put the cam on and we'll I'm interested to see how it looks when it goes right. Okay chaps, so I'm going to attempt to explain what I've tried to create here, which is a sort of an open version of an imp engine, so you can see the valves accelerating towards the piston at top dead centre before the piston gets a chance to come down the bore. I think it's going to show it quite well, but I'll zoom in a second. I just want to show you a bit of a makeshift tensioner here for the chain. All this goes round. We'll do a lap together. You can see how it works, the valves open and close, etc. And we'll zoom in now, and I'll try and talk you through it without tying myself in knots, which could be quite hard, as you've probably gathered from now. So by now, so we're at TDC there and we're firing. So if I come back a little bit, if you imagine the spark, it's probably started to take place about now, you know, sort of like 20-25 degrees before top dead center, and then the burner's got going and it started to burn, started to expand, and the gases are really getting a push on now, and the gases are expanding and pushing the piston down the bore, which we are transferring into a rotary motion via the con rod. So the con rod's pushing down the crank and pushing the crankshaft round, and now we're probably at a stage where most of the gases are burnt, so the exhaust valve starts to open just before bottom dead center, and all the gases, this is where the theory, the sort of suck, squeeze, bang, blow doesn't really stand, because what's happening here is it's not going to blow the gases out with the piston coming up. The gases are in such a rush to get out because they've got loads of energy in them still, probably. That's why the exhaust gets so hot. You know, the gases will be burning still and they just want to cool down and expand, so they're going out the exhaust port now, and the piston is coming up and in theory chasing the rest of the gases out of the cylinder, although they'll be keen to get out still. And what we can see is the inlet valve has started to open. So we'll get to TDC, and this is what we call the overlap. So you can see there at top dead center we've got a little bit more lift on the inlet than the exhaust, but they're both held open. So at this point we're relying on the speed of the exhaust gases and all the energy that's still in them going down the exhaust port into our exhaust pipe. And that's why on a high overlap cam like this one, it's really important that the exhaust pipe or manifold works correctly and we get like a backdraft. So the scavenge now, we've got all the exhaust gases going out of here, we're relying on that to cause a bit of a backdraft and actually draw fresh air and fuel into the chamber. So we're looking for a good fill. We want a good fill for the next cycle. So a portion of this fresh air and fuel will go out of the exhaust port, and that's lost, you know, as lost energy. But it's a race engine, we just want power, and all this is happening very, very fast, remember. So on a road car it will have very little overlap at top dead center, but obviously on a race car we have loads, because we want to make full effect of that exhaust gases rushing out the exhaust with that lovely manifold helping the exhaust gases to flow, and then the backdraft is drawing the fresh air and fuel in. So we've now got no exhaust gases in here in theory, although there will be bits knocking about, and we're going to fill the cylinder with nice fresh cold air and fuel. So you see the inlet valves open, and I'll just go back, see if you can pick up on the exhaust valve, the inlet valve chasing the piston. You see it there just at the very top. So the piston hasn't moved much, but the valve really got a rush on, you know, because it's coming on lift. and that's why I made such a fuss about making clearance in the piston at top dead centre, because it's that acceleration of the cam on the inlet valve that chases the piston, you know, that gives us a chance of the inlet valve colliding with the piston, which we don't want. So going on to our waffle again, the piston's going down, the fresh air and petrol atomised in it is being pushed in by atmospheric pressure. All the cylinder is doing is creating a vacuum somewhere for it to go. So there's obviously pressure, 1 bar, atmosphere, pushing that fuel and air in and filling the cylinder. Now interestingly, after bottom dead centre, although the piston hasn't moved much, the valve is still open a little bit, and that's probably why you sometimes see on a race engine when they're on cam, you'll see standoff, which is where you'll see the we call it standoff. It's where the fuel and air is actually coming back out. It looks like it's coming back out the carburetors, but it's not. It's just a haze. I'm not quite sure what that phenomenon is all about, but it's possibly to do with the fact that for a very small fraction of time the inlet valve is open and the piston is on its way back up again. So now we're squashing the fresh air and fuel ready for our next power stroke. So it's coming up, squashed it all. I mean, on a high compression engine like this, probably quite volatile, you know, you've got a lot of pressure in there and atomized fuel and air mixture ready to go bang. So before top dead, we'd get the spark plug, would ignite that fuel, and the whole cycle starts again. So that's basically how your 4-cycle engine works, in case you're a novice. But I'll probably tie myself in knots, but hopefully you can see my point now, what I was trying to say all about the valve. So the exhaust valve there is being chased out of the way, and the inlet valve is chasing the piston down. That's where we have to have so much clearance at top dead. Right, now I've done that, I can get on with building it, because I'm really keen to get this thing a tune out of it soon. Okay chaps, just busy working away, and the postman's arrived and he's got a special parcel for me. So it's a reconditioned Christmas card, Happy New Year, smiley face, and it's from none less than, Mr. Jonathan Bevan. So I was extremely touched to see he'd wrote a little note to me, and he got me a little badge, little original Bevan badge that. So I'll take that home and sew it on my overalls. And then in the parcel was this, an original unground imp cam, so we can make that into anything. So I've just rang him to thank him, and said, Jonathan, this is, you know, really kind of you to post this to me and think of me. And he said, well, you know, he said it's sat there in my granddad's shed for years, and I brought it in the house, blah de blah. It's sat there forever, and I thought, I'm never going to do anything with it. You may as well turn it into something. So I thought, brilliant, we'll send this to Ken, and because it's got so much material on it, I think we'll ask Uncle Bob to do us a new profile, something a bit wilder, and we'll get it put on that blank. So that's brilliant. Thank you very much, Jonathan. A very nice. Right, okay, I've got a little job here, and I thought we'll make a video on it, because the customer probably quite interested to see what's going on. It was Neil, if you remember, we had the Chuckle brothers, Neil and Paul, a few weeks back on the video where they'd had the floods on the 10th of October, and their engine had got flooded with water. So the water didn't actually damage it, but while it's apart, we're going to give it a bit of an upgrade. So I noticed that it hadn't been welded here, which is a really thin area for the Hillmans, and they sometimes crack between number 2 and 3 cylinders. So I've put a blob of alley on there. It hadn't cracked. I've just put that alley on there for support, just to strengthen it where it's thin. And then the plan for this head is I'm going to skim it. It's a nice full fat Imp Sport head, and I'm going to skim it, and I'm going to make it a little bit of a wedger so that we can get the compression ratio up, so we can reshape the chamber a nice shape. And also what we're going to do is we're going to cut the valve seats to 1.3 and 1.125, which is the biggest you can go on the standard Imp seat and we're going to give it a bit of a tidy up, a bit of a blast. So I want to face it and wheel string it first, and then we'll do the guides and the seats, and then tidy the ports up and a bit of port matching to the manifold, and we'll go through it step by step together. Right, okay, I finished skimming the head now. Now I did originally plan to take quite a bit of material off this to reduce the chamber size, so we could reshape the chamber, like de-shroud it around the inlet here to make it flow better. But then I realised when I was looking at it, the chamber is completely standard. So if you look, normally on a 998 this is all relieved, which loses loads of compression, and the chamber ends up deeper and bigger. So this was on a 1040cc bottom end, sorry, I should have added that. So because it's on a standard chamber for an 875, what I've done now is I've just removed the minimum amount of material to clean it up. I took about 15-18 thou off it, so it's cleaned up everywhere, which is all I wanted to do. It's still a lovely thick head, because I don't like taking them dead thin for no reason. There's no point just skimming material away for the sake of it. And what we'll do next is we'll use the wheel stringing tool to redo the wheel string grooves to the correct depth, and then we can get on with putting the guides in and doing the seats and reshaping the chamber. Right, we've finished skimming the head now and remachining the wheel string grooves. So obviously, because I took material off the head face, I've then got to deepen the grooves to give us that desired 58th hour of depth, so that when we put the wheel string in and pull the head down with the paper gasket, it basically leaves about between 15 and 18 thou of compression on the wheel string, which it deforms when it hits the face of the iron liner. So it's fully supported in the groove there, and fits nicely like that, so nicely that I can't get it out. But yeah, so the wheel string sits in there. Oh, there we go. And then the paper gasket goes on the outside, and that's obviously proud by about 15 thou. So as we clamp the head on, it deforms and we get a perfect seal. Now I'm going to attempt to measure this one-handed. So I'll just pop that on there like that, and then measure the depth of the hole. 57. I was a thou out. Right, so it is actually 58 because I measured it before, but there you go. That's that part complete. Let's get on with we'll do the guides and the seats next. Okay, also to go with Neil's engine, the one I'm doing the cylinder head on, is the crankshaft, and this is the crank. It was a freshly built engine, this, by somebody else, and it's on 20 thou mains and big end, so it's already had a grind. I have checked the radius in the corner, and there's no sharp bits, so I'm quite happy for him to run this crank. He has requested, however, that he has a rear oil seal conversion, so this is an imp crank with a scroll. We turn this down to 3 inches, and that gives us the diameter for the oil seal to run on them. And obviously I'll show you the back of the block that we converted, which I've done many a time before, but I'll go over it quickly for you, if in case any newcomers on the program. We're going to do a little quick cut together. Okay, we just keep doing that, 20 thou at a time till we get to 3 inches. Alright, I finished turning the journal down to the rear seal down to 3 inches now, so measured that, and that's all come out good, so I'm happy with that. I'll give it a little bit of polish. So that's 3 inches, and you might have noticed that last time this was in the lathe, it was in a 4-jaw chuck, and this was this way around. But what it is, when we polish the crankshaft, and I have talked about it before, we always polish them in the direction of rotation, so it goes that way, and then I put the polishing tape on and just give the journals a clean up, so that all the edges that you can't see are all laid the right way for the rotation in the engine. And we've got some staff here. Who's this? You better introduce yourself.
I'm not introducing.
Right, this is my pal. This is my Bezzy. You might remember him from the stock car video where we went to the farm and helped out with Carl and that. And yeah, he's on holiday at the moment. So
head stripping duty today.
Head stripping. He's done 3 already. Look at that, mega production. But basically, the best way of describing this scenario is he's been watching the YouTube, because you are a subscriber, aren't you?
Subscribe, mate.
And he said,
subscribed.
I am so with that bloke who says your workshop is a complete tip. And it hurt. I said, well, why don't you come down and tidy up, starting with that massive pile of heads under the miller. I said, you can de-stud them all. And that's what we're on, isn't it, mate?
Fully trained, mate.
Fully trained. Have you completed the risk assessment for doing this?
Certainly have, yeah.
Excellent. Right, good
Got
luck.
a note off me, Mum.
Oh, superb. That'll do. Okay, I do apologise. I've moved on a few steps since last time you saw the cylinder head. This is Neil's head, the Fast Road 998 imp. And I've cut... last time you saw it was being skimmed and having the wheel string grooves done, so we did them. And then after that, I just relieved the chamber a little bit, you know, for the de-shroud of the inlet valve to help the gases pass down here. So I did that, and also I put some support screws in. These little screws I have talked about before, they basically bridge the load from the wheel string groove to the floor of the exhaust port. It's just a quarter UNF grub screw that comes in at an angle. It just bridges the gap, so because it's all hollow underneath here, so if you can imagine when you clamp the head down, the wheel string tries to push through. So little supports, that was an Ian Carter trick. That obviously I've opened up the inlet ports quite considerably, so that I've had the manifold, which is over here, and done the port matching with the manifold gasket, so everything will line up perfectly now. So that should be a nice saving for him. Also, I've cut the valve seats and lapped them, so they're 1.3 now and 1.125, so it's like a fast road spec head. It'll flow a lot better than the original. It was like a sport spec before. And also put the bronze valve guides in with the they run these little modern seals from a Vauxhall Corsa. So that's the head done. Oh, blasted it as well. And if you remember, I welded it in the middle there first before we skimmed it, so that's where the prone to cracking. We talked about that before, didn't we? So this is the crankshaft, and you probably noticed I've turned the rear of the journal down to 3 inches now, so we can run with the rear seal conversion, which sits in there, which I've now lost. I did have them in front of me a minute ago. Anyway, they're here somewhere. So there's a rear seal, but we'll go through that perhaps later. There's some bearings there. I've got some nice original old school Van der Velde mains for it. And the big ends that I got out of the drawer, it's 20 thou, this undersized, so it's a bit of a rarity. I thought, oh look at this lovely packet, got them out and they're absolute scrap. So they're in the bin. Anyway, never mind, we'll put him on some ACL ones. I'll get them machined up in a bit. This is his 998 block. There was nothing really wrong with it. I've just cleaned it. I blasted it actually so that it looks nice and pretty for him, and the timing cover. So I'll give it a light glaze bust, not took any size out of it, and I've face plated it, so it's all ready to go out together. So we'll get a build on with this, and maybe we'll get a tune out of it before the end of the week. I'm not 100% sure yet. Okay, just on with building Neil's engine, and measured the compression ratio, worked out perfect, 24.9, which was 11 to 1. With our reshaping of the chamber, it's had a little bit of a skim and just a bit of an edge taker off, we'll call it. Just smoothened out the chamber a bit with the hurdy-gurdy. Now, this engine is unlike any other engine I've ever done in that it's got a Maynard M14 cam. This is the cam that Mark sells, that is like a fast road cam, he calls it, and I've heard really good reports about it, but I've never actually dynoed anything with one in. So I just rang Mark and said, like, you know, where do I time it in at? And he said time it equals, which what he means is, he said, like, inlet and exhaust are both be open the same amount at TDC. Now, obviously I should just listen to him because it's his cam, but because it's me, I thought I can't do that. That's just like, I just can't do it. So what I've done is I've put it about between 15 and 20 thou ahead, and we're not going to go massively into cam timing, but you can see there that both valves are held open. That's the inlet, which is coming onto lift, and the exhaust, which is coming off lift. So if I zoom out and I turn this in an anti-clockwise direction, as the load comes off lift, the DTI gauge on there should tell us how much lift we've got at top dead center. So that's 50. So it's 50, 60, 64 thou on the inlet. So I'll wind it back to 0. So back at our start point, TDC. So that's back to 0. And then, so I just said 64, didn't I, on the inlet, 64 thou. Let's see what we've got on the exhaust. I'll try and do this one-handed, which could be quite tricky. Bring this down, zero him on the exhaust bucket. Oops. Right, there we are. So zero that. Right, and then this time, because the lobe is on this side, we're going to go in a clockwise direction and measure the lift at top dead center on the exhaust lobe. So let's see what we've got. I think we'll have about I want to go between 25 and 30. So we're going clockwise, that's 25, 30. Oh, so looks like we've got about 34 thou on the exhaust. So 64, 34, we'll write that on the front pulley. That's where we're at. Now if it doesn't perform or doesn't behave the way I want it to, I'll go to mark settings, but I just like to have a little bit of advance on the cam. I don't think it'd I couldn't cope with doing them equals like he said, but I'm sure it'd work. Anyway, I'm not going to get on dyno today, I'm afraid, so it's going to be next week. I've not been shaping properly, but yeah, we'll get to it at some point, and next week we'll get a tune out of it and do a video of it on the dyno. Whilst I've been building this engine for my mate Neil, my mate Shauno has been cleaning the workshop. Mate, look at that. Wow, you've done a grand job. Look at the floor. Absolutely superb.
Spot on, mate.
Thank you. You know what I'm going to do, because you've worked so hard cleaning the workshop for me while you've been off? I'm going to take you to Chapati Corner in Sheet Mill for your dinner.
Let's do it.
Mate, amazing. Look over here. Oh, we've still got a swarf pile here, mate.
I'm weighing that in.
You're weighing that in? Good lad. Yeah, that could be a Christmas bonus. Yeah, we've got some blocks on there. Look at the radar drill. Crikey. And my grinder. Wow. My Miller 2. And my head stack. Mate, you've even hoovered down here. This is remarkable. Right, wonderful. Great job there, mate. Chapati Corner. Right, mate, you can have anything from here as long as it's rice and free curries, yeah?
Choose.
Has it been worth it all that hard work to clean that unit up? Has it? Look at it, amazing. Never get better than this. You come to Manchester, make sure you go to Chapati Corner. Okay chaps, hope you've enjoyed tonight's content, maybe learnt a little bit or not. Right, I look forward to seeing you all next Sunday at 7, but there's a small chance I'm going to be able to try and get time to do a video about banger racing. I know it's not everyone's cup of tea, but I'm taking Russell on Sunday to Hednesford, and obviously I won't get a chance to upload any of it until Tuesday. So Tuesday at 7, I'm going to try and do like a midweek special, or not quite midweek, Tuesday night special, 7 o'clock, all about the banger racing. And my mate who's got the unit down at the bottom, who races them, I'm going to try and interview him and get him to talk to us about, you know, what it's all about. Okay, hope you've enjoyed tonight's YouTube content, and I will speak to you on Tuesday night.